Rwby Volume 4 was the most disappointing thing since my son. I mean, how much could you possibly F up the continuation of Rwby? Now while my son died after watching this train wreck, the unfortunate reality is that these volumes will be around forever. They will never go away. It can never be undone. Now here's someone who's under the age of like 12 who says its least favorite volume is Volume 5 because it was the most boringest one. Then I suggest you shut this review off right now, before I carefully explain how much of a So where do I possibly start?
Eye for an eye.
Nothing in Volume 4 makes any sense at all. Comes off as a script written by an 8-year-old. It's like Miles and Carrie finished a script in one draft, like they turned it in and they decided to go with it without anyone saying that it made no sense at all or was a stupid, incoherent mess. I guess at this point, who's gonna question the writers to tell them what to do?
I hear you guys like Rwby, and
Should we do introductions or not?
what?
They control every aspect of the show. They probably got rid of those people that questioned them creatively a long time ago. Okay, I'm not gonna talk like that throughout the whole video. Well, we finally made it, guys. We exited the earlier volumes and finally entered the main story of the show. Now, I have gotten some interesting comments in the previous videos and I think it would be best to repeat my intentions going forward. I mean, it's no secret at this point that I dislike the show. My intentions with the show is to analyze it as chronologically as possible. There can be moments where I might have to bring up something from later volumes or outside material if I think it's relevant enough to bring up. If there are certain issues in the later volumes that contradict with what happened previously, then I'm gonna mention these issues in those later volumes. After the whole disaster that was Volume 3, the show now decided to switch its tone to be a more serious and more straightforward narrative-driven show. While Volume 1 to 3 did have moments where the main plot started moving forward and it was all serious and stuff, the tone of the show was a lot more silly, and while it's not good, the show knew how silly it was and knew it was a low-budget show with a bunch of action scenes and dumb comedy. But the biggest issues with those early volumes were that they didn't properly develop the characters. Then Volume 3 decided to start being more serious and bring in a bunch of plot points that should have never been introduced at all. And now I'm supposed to care that all these characters are going on some great adventure without the main guy being there to make the show anymore. It was up to the current showrunners to take whatever Monty has sort of vaguely set up and make a big story out of it. But not only is it far too late to start doing that, considering you destroyed like the whole school and didn't develop your characters properly and done such a poor job at world building. It's quite demanding for a bunch of writers who were just amateurs to start working on something so big. I mean, there are people who want to claim that Monty has planned this whole story out, but I'm sorry, I don't buy this nonsense one single bit. There's no way this one amateurish animator who was well known for his fun fight scenes and couldn't write at all to have planned out a 10-year story. Now, I'm not gonna pretend that Monty didn't have some ideas for the show that he wanted to include. Apparently, some people also believe that if he was still around, the show would have been a lot better. Now, seeing as the writing quality in Volume 1 and 2 were not good at all, and with the writing team that this show had, I don't think it would have been that much different as to how the show turned out. Well, I mean, I'm sure there would have been some changes, but I guarantee that the writing quality would not have improved much. Now, one common complaint I've heard about this volume is that it's slow, which yeah, sure, but that's not really the main issue. The main issue with this volume is that it doesn't really do much at all. The main girls are separated and they could have actually explored them in some way, but no, they vaguely do something with them and they just continue on as if nothing really happened. All this volume really is just padding, having too much going on but don't actually conclude into anything. All of this feels like it's just a setup for Volume 5, which is kind of funny considering the main complaint about Volume 5 is that all these characters just sit in a house or whatever. But enough intro talk, let's actually get into the volume. And before we begin, I want to once again give a huge thanks to Honeycomb in helping me out making some of the points in this video, just like she helped me out with the previous 3 videos. So yeah, let's get into it. The volume starts off with the shot of Unversed emerging from these puddles, and I'm already asking questions. Okay, first off, these look like already evolved Unversed emerging from these puddles, when in Volume 2 Oobleck said that the longer they Unversed are around, the more they evolve, where it gets to a point where Unversed are smart enough to not actively engage with humans in combat because they know they're gonna die.
Rwby, not
every Grimm is mindless. Or rather, not every Grimm is still mindless. You see, the Grimm you see before you are so powerful, so superior to the Grimm you fought, that they've undoubtedly lived hundreds of years. And in that time between killing humans and attacking our borders, they've done one important thing. They've learned that when they attack our borders, they're likely to die. And what we lack in strength, we make up for in will.
Okay, but what's the point of all of this if you can just spawn armored unversed from puddles? This isn't even the first time they've done this. Volume 3 had that dragon spawn evolved unversed as well. What exactly are the limits of these puddles? Is it only certain unversed types? Can it spawn bigger ones? What need are there to have evolved unversed where you can just spawn already evolved unversed out of these puddles? And it's not like the unversed become any smarter throughout the show. They're all just killing machines for the main characters to fight against and nothing else. That whole entire bit with Oobleck is never brought up again, and nothing has been done with that ever since. It's only been like 30 seconds in the volume and I'm already confused. Now this is where I have to bring up that the show has changed its animation and art style. I'm not really a fan of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the first 3 volumes didn't exactly look good, but they had some neat things to its characters that are a lot better than what they did with every other volume after volume 3. Everything from the environment and the characters' textures look flat. They don't really have any shading to them, which makes everything look very flat and washed out. They even changed the eyes of the characters, making them look a lot smaller and a lot rounder than they were previously to some of the characters. It ended up making a lot of the characters, especially the female characters, look very similar and generic. They don't really stand out too much. Volume 1 to 3 had the characters give like some shading to their designs. You know, Pyrrha's armor looks like it's made of metal. They also had a thicker outline to them, which made them look a bit more animated. I even started to get used to the art style in Volume 3 and hoped they would improve on what they already had. But no, they decided to change the animation completely, which technically is an improvement, but it just looks very flat and generic. So this is where we get introduced to the Suicide Squad, who serve under the main villain of the show, Salem, with Cinder being severely wounded after what happened in Volume 3. Now, this is something you have to keep in mind. According to what the team have said, apparently Volume 4 takes place 6 to 8 months after Volume 3.
I was just wondering, you keep talking about the time skip. I was wondering if we can get like a ballpark of how long this time skip was.
We're not gonna be like too specific about it. It is less than a year. It's probably somewhere between like 6 to 8 months. Yeah.
This is a very important plot point that not only cripples both Volume 4 and 5, but also it's something that was never stated in this volume at all. Like, according to the showrunners, they're trying to keep the timeline of the show as vague as possible to avoid creating plot holes. But I'm sorry, this sounds like the dumbest thing you could do for world building. For you to just ignore the timeline of events when the audience is supposed to have a pretty good understanding on the timeline of events happening throughout the show, otherwise I would be questioning a lot of things like I'm gonna do in this volume. Like, when I first saw the show, I assumed Volume 4 only took place like at most a few weeks after Volume 3, which would make a lot more sense with how this volume is trying to frame everything. But 6 to 8 months? This is especially bizarre because the characters act like the events of Volume 3 happened like it was yesterday. Watts here is insulting and making fun of Cinder for her failure in Volume 3. So does that scene happen before the time skip or after? It can't be before because Tyrian is going after Rwby and then afterwards already returned to Salem after he failed to capture her. So why would Watts insult Cinder over something that has already happened like 8 months ago? That's what I mean with the characters acting like the things happened yesterday. Especially since Cinder is still injured. Like, I guess it takes a really long time to recover from Ruby's silver eyes. So anyway, Salem comes in and questions Watts why he's roasting Cinder.
Do you find such malignance necessary?
I'm not particularly fond of failure.
Then I see no reason for your cruelty towards young Cinder. She's become our fall maiden, destroyed Beacon Tower, and most importantly, killed dear Ozpin. So I'm curious, to what failures are you referring?
Well, that is a pretty good question, Salem, because according to Crow, she's after the relics, and the volume did establish that the relics are beneath the Huntsman Academies, which is something I will get to later. While Cinder did become the maiden and killed Ozpin, that just kinda leaves the question, why didn't she get the relic that she was supposed to get, because that's Salem's goal. She went up the tower and talked to the dragon, but why would she waste her time doing that when she could have been looking for the relic? I mean, if anything, she she should have already had the location of the relic, seeing that she hacked inside the computer room and got like all the info. So I would assume it's to not only destroy the school, but also locate where both the maiden and the relic is hidden. Seeing as the relics haven't existed during volume 3, they probably forgot or they didn't think that far ahead, which is kinda embarrassing. Or they didn't want her looking for the relic because they wanted to have this forced conflict between Cinder and Pyrrha, which was one of the stupidest moments in the show. Why would Salem be pleased with Cinder if she failed to get the one thing that's important to fulfill whatever it is she's planning to do? You cannot be serious. I get they wanted Salem to come across as like this mother figure who cares for her children, but it makes no sense with the context of what she's trying to accomplish. Also, by that note, this is something that also doesn't make sense with the context of the previous volumes. Osmond has stated that they're in a time of peace, but it doesn't make sense when we take this volume into consideration, because the biggest threat of Remnant is still alive and wants to get the one thing you're hiding from her, plus the large number of Unversed that are still around trying to kill people. You guys were a group of people who knew about the threats that no one else knew about, so why would Osmond consider this the time of peace when the biggest threat to humanity is still out there? Especially when you take volume 6 into consideration, but we're not gonna go into that in this video.
The girl with the silver eyes.
Yes. We've dealt with their kind before. How is it a novice was able to best one of us?
What? I'm sorry, but Hazel says they've dealt with silver-eyed warriors before. If that's the case, then how come Cinder never realized that Ruby has silver eyes? The first thing Osmond mentions about Ruby is that she has silver eyes. And if the squad have dealt with silver-eyed warriors before, then how is it that Cinder wasn't aware of this when she met Ruby in volume 2? Why did she never bother contacting Salem and telling her about Ruby? Even so, is Cinder not aware of the maiden's weakness once she obtains her full powers? Why would Salem not tell her this? Because the way she looked in volume 3 made it seem like she was surprised by the fact that Ruby has those powers. If anything, they should have made sure that Ruby can't do anything at all. Tell Mercury to cut her eyes or something. So Salem gives everyone a task and Cinder asks what about Ruby, and Salem tells Tyrian to go after her. So now we get introduced to a brand new character called Oscar. He's a farm boy that lives in the middle of nowhere and does farm stuff. You know, as if this show doesn't have a lot of characters already, they thought it was a good idea to introduce a brand new one. The reason he gets introduced is because Osmond is getting reincarnated in his body. You see, when Osmond dies, his soul gets transferred to another person's body and he slowly takes it over. But the issue is that this entire volume does nothing with Oscar's character. It doesn't give him any distinct characteristics or anything. He's just a farm boy that does farm stuff and Osmond is telling him to go to this important mission. What's the point if you're not gonna do anything with this character? And that's not just an issue with this volume. Throughout the entire show, Oscar is such a nothing burger that sometimes I even keep forgetting that he exists at all. We waste so many scenes of him doing his farm stuff when all of that time could have been spent elsewhere. It's just pointless padding to fill out the runtime. I get you want to have this small introduction where we see this mysterious new character, but if those scenes don't even do anything to give Oscar any characteristics other than he's a farm boy, then what's the point? So after this we meet Team Juniper and Rwby, who got brand new outfits and are fighting a giant Unversed. I'm not a fan of Team Ruby's new designs. I was totally fine with Ruby's black and red color scheme in volume 1. I don't know why they decided to add all this white stuff. She even has this boob window which just looks ugly. They also decided to give her random belts on her body. Like, she doesn't even look like she belongs in Rwby, she looks more like she belongs in Kingdom Hearts. Yang's design is a more casual fit throughout the volume. She does however change to her main outfit at the end of the volume, which she wears throughout volume 5 and 6. I have no idea why they keep deciding to give Yang all this brown and black with all these weird layers when her main color is supposed to be yellow. I mean, honestly, her volume 1 design isn't the greatest either in my opinion, but it's better than what we got later. In my opinion, that one outfit she wore in volume 2 is probably her best design. It's the only outfit that actually gives her a bit of yellow. It's not a bright yellow, more so a pale yellow, and still keeps her hair as the most prominent part of her design. So why do you keep giving Yang all this brown? She looks like a potato. Weiss has this dull blue-gray colored dress throughout the whole volume. I have no idea why they decided to suddenly give her all this blue and gray when her main color is white. Like, her volume 1 design was just perfect. And it's not she stays in that outfit while she's in her mansion. She stays in that outfit throughout volume 4, 5 and 6. I feel like I'm missing a character. Nah, we'll probably get into that later. So anyways, during the fight, we now see that Ruby is permanently able to fly using her semblance. I mentioned in the previous volume how that could have benefited her throughout the first 2 volumes. Yet for some reason she never decided to use it. She can even pick someone up using her semblance. So why didn't you just use that with Oobleck in volume 2 to stop the train? They all just decide to hit this rock titan until Jean has the brilliant plan to hit the titan even harder.
I got it! We hit it! Harder!
Is that not something you would have thought of doing earlier, considering you have someone on your team that hits hard? The heck have you guys been doing the whole time? After the fight, it's revealed that they were doing this as a job for this village. I'm sorry, but isn't this kind of job meant to be for huntsmen? Why would they allow a bunch of high school dropouts to do huntsman jobs when they don't even have the license to do so? Team Ranger are pretty much being vigilantes doing all this huntsman stuff, and the show never addresses this. There are absolutely no consequences to their actions, and they get away with it scot-free. Why doesn't this village call any huntsmen to do this job? How exactly would this village operate if there aren't any huntsmen nearby who are specialized for this kind of stuff? The implication later on in this episode is because Beacon Tower fell, they have no proper communication anymore. I'm sorry, this is such a bizarre thing that the show does. There are 4 communication towers in Remnant, and just because the one tower in a different kingdom in a different continent was destroyed, now all of a sudden all the communication towers don't work properly, especially since this is a world that has more advanced technology than what we have in real life. Even if that's the case, it has been 6 to 8 months and they still haven't decided to fix the communication tower. Wouldn't their communication rely on Mistral's tower instead of Vale? This is so ridiculous on so many levels. The reason they decided to make it like this when it doesn't make any sense at all with its established universe is because they wanted to have the story go the way they wanted to go, instead of having the story revolve around how the mechanics of the world should actually function. So anyways, Team Ranger go to some blacksmith and Jean gets his new gear. But why do we need all of this? Why Jean specifically? Everyone already starts off with their new outfits, but Jean is just the only one who gets a section of the episode focused on him getting new gear. This is pointless. Why can't Jean just have started off with his new outfits just like everyone else? Maybe Jean is just the writer's favorite character or something, I don't know.
Made all the modifications you asked for. That was some fine metal you brought me. Accents the white nicely. Where'd you get it from?
From a friend.
I'm sorry, what? Is the implication here that he got the medal from Pyrrha? Pyrrha's whole body got vaporized in volume 3. The only explanation I would have is that her sword and shield would still be there. But then how exactly would Jean have obtained it? Pyrrha sent Jean in the middle of the city somewhere, and I'm pretty sure Huntsman wouldn't let a student get anywhere near the school with all the chaos going on. Did they give the sword and shield to Jean? Why would they do that? Wouldn't you want to send it back to her family? This might be like the only remaining thing of Pyrrha and they gave it to Jean so that he can use its metal to make his own armor? How do you think the conversation between the huntsman and the parents would be like? I'm sorry, ma'am, but we couldn't find her body. Oh my god. Is there really nothing left of her? Well, we found her sword and shield, but we gave it to Jean Arc. What? Who the heck is Jean Arc? So they all gear up and make their way to another village called Shion, because according to Ren, they have working airships there and it's the fastest way to get to Haven Academy. Now, this is something that I haven't brought up until now, but why in the heck are Team Ranger going to Mistral on foot? Reminder, it has been 6 to 8 months ever since Volume 3, and they're still trying to make their way there. They should have arrived at Mistral by now instead of walking all the way there. What the heck is taking them so long to get there? I would have thought that they'd have used public transport to get to Mistral and not walk all the way there. Any minute they waste, Cinder and the White Fang might have started the next attack for all they know. Now, I have seen some defenses when it comes to them not using public transport, and I'm gonna address them. Number 1. They might not have the money for it. Now, the reason I think this is a weak defense is because why would they go on this mission without the money they need? Jean, Ren, Nora, and Rwby would have definitely have the money for it. How else did they meet all at Ruby's house? Nothing about the writing suggests that they're poor. If they didn't have the money, then they shouldn't have been able to get new clothes and pay a blacksmith to make Jean's new armor. Was buying all these belts for Rwby really necessary? The fact that these clothes are also tailor-made for them means they sent more money to get custom-made designs. So they got the money to buy all this useless stuff, but not go to Haven. Number 2. cars would not be useful on those narrow paths. Then why would Team Ranger take the narrow paths and not get a taxi or a bus or a train that goes to Haven? Or if you want to go even poorer, have a horse carriage take them to Haven. And if any of you say this universe don't have any of these things, then you can go eat a sock. The time they spent walking was longer than however long it would have took them to get to a nearby train station or something. Number 3. You could make the argument that there aren't any train stations nearby, and the one Oscar took was near Mistral. Now, this makes no sense, because if Oscar was able to get to a train station that is in the middle of nowhere where he lives, then that means trains would operate around Anima and go to other villages as well. Why would the trains only operate in Mistral when it should be around the whole continent? If it doesn't, then this is just poor world building on the writer's part. Because how else are all these villages supposed to get their supplies if they all live in the middle of nowhere without any public transport? Why would Xi'an be the only village that has airships? If they don't, then it would be pretty unsustainable to keep a village running. Now I get why they took so long. Because they wasted their time going on side quests instead of making their way directly to Haven Academy. Now, this was also where I discovered that Remnant has different continents with their own names. And it's not just the kingdoms. Now, I feel kinda stupid for not realizing the obvious, but at the same time, the show never really took its time to establish its universe properly. If they were gonna go from Vale all the way to Anima, they would have taken a boat to get to the other side. So they had the money to also use a ship, but not use any other means of public transport. Okay. By the way, apparently Monty has implied that the continent where Vale and Vacuo are is supposed to have been called Vital, but for some reason the writers rewrote it so that it's called Sonus instead. Why? I don't see any reason to change the name. Wow, they sure are keeping the vision. So now we cut to Weiss, who is sitting in her room doing nothing. Back in volume 3, it was established that Jacques took Weiss back to Atlas because he thinks it's safe around there. And Weiss has just been doing nothing at all for 8 months. The characters in it again act like it has only been like a few days ever since volume 3, because they keep bringing the events up. So for 8 months, Weiss has just been sitting in her room doing nothing. Doesn't that kind of go against her whole character of going against her father's wishes to do her own thing? Because that's what she has been doing up to that point. And now you regressed Weiss from being this independent young lady to obeying her father's orders again? That's so backwards to what her character was back in volume 2 and 3. And this annoys me because so many people always bring up that Weiss had such great character development, when I think this is complete bull. She has been going against her father's wishes ever since volume 1, when she decided to join a huntsman school in Beacon, and now she learns the exact same thing again? I'm sorry, that's not character development, that's just having Weiss relearn the same thing she already learned in the previous volumes. We also get introduced to this dweeb named Whitley, who is the younger brother of Weiss, and he's the only character that follows his father's footsteps. After this, we have the scene of Ruby having nightmares because of Pyrrha's death. Now, I already said in the last volume that Ruby and Pyrrha didn't really develop their friendship. I'm supposed to care that Ruby is sad about Pyrrha's death, but I feel absolutely nothing. So they all arrive in Xi'an and find out, oh no, it's been recently destroyed, and one of the survivors they found happens to be a huntsman. Wow, isn't that amazing, guys? After 3 whole volumes of not seeing a single other huntsman that aren't the teachers, and he just dies. This is kinda embarrassing, considering that huntsmen are supposed to be super powerful by comparison to the students. I mean, don't you remember the things they were able to do in volume 1? Also, this village has huntsmen, but what about the previous village? He says they got attacked by bandits and unversed. You know, the one thing they're supposed to be specialized against? It can't be that this village only had 1 huntsman around. If it did, then this would be pretty stupid. And then there's a footprint of a certain unversed that will be relevant later on. So we cut to Weiss listening in on her father's conversation with Ironwood, and Ironwood is proposing to close the borders until they make sure that no other kingdom is declaring war on Atlas.
You are blowing it out of proportion.
The council will never agree to it.
You forget, I hold 2 seats on the council.
What, 2 seats? Is that even a thing? Why would a council give someone 2 seats? So that one person gets to have 2 votes while the rest only get to have 1? That doesn't seem very fair. I mean, we do get to see the Atlas Council in volume 7, but we're not there yet.
Please know, you'll always have a home at Atlas Academy, Mishni. We'll be back in session before you know it.
You know, this actually makes me question, why didn't Weiss go to Atlas Academy? It would also make more sense with what her goal is, cause she wants to take over her father's company. I mean, it makes no sense that she would become a huntress for that, but it makes more sense for her to go to a school that is in Atlas. This also would have been a lot better story-wise. Like, instead of us having this useless plot of her leaving the mansion to go to Mistral, it would be far more interesting if Weiss would go to Atlas Academy. We would also see how the school operates over there, and we could even get a glimpse of how the kingdom treats faunus. You know, cause later volumes establish that apparently Atlas is the most racist kingdom or whatever. We could have had like some actual world building and character work going on. I mean, if anything, Weiss shouldn't really be in volume 4. We could have had small scenes with her seeing how the progress goes, but other than that, this entire thing is unnecessary, because nothing that Weiss does has anything to do with her goals.
Can you believe there are still people in the world that blame Atlas for what happened to Beacon? To Vale?
Well, they weren't there.
They still blame Atlas over what happened in Beacon? How is that possible? Need I remind you that the whole point of the Vital Festival was to bring people from other kingdoms together, celebrating the cultures from all over the world. Even the students who participated in the tournament were from other kingdoms. Did none of them ever bother explaining what actually happened during the attack? The fact that they all saw that they were hacked and then ordered all the clone troopers to execute Order 66? They would even get the news reporters and ask all the people that were at the tournament what exactly happened. They would all have an alibi. I'm sorry, I just don't buy this nonsense that no one knows what happened during the fall of Beacon, when so many people were there and they all returned to their respective kingdom. Did all the people in Remnant decide to suddenly have amnesia and just forget what happened?
I'm not good at a lot of memory-related things. It's really, really bad.
Also, they have no communications, yet they know that other kingdoms blame Atlas. I mean, if anything, they should have already declared war on Atlas due to everyone thinking that they caused the destruction at the Vital Festival, Beacon Academy, and the deaths of several individuals. So Jacques is holding a charity concert and wants Weiss to sing. And Weiss is like, oh, okay. So after this we cut to Rwby having another nightmare, and then she hears Pyrrha's voice. And then she sees Jean training. Because remember guys, Pyrrha's death was so sad and totally not idiotic at all. With this video that Pyrrha apparently recorded for Jean. And this is how the episode ends. So it has been 2 episodes so far, and what exactly was accomplished? Episode 1, the squad do their work, Jean gets new armor and they're still traveling. Episode 2, Weiss is in her mansion, Team Ranger are still traveling. Weiss is in her mansion. Team Ranger are still traveling. Like, this is what I mean with this volume just being padding, because they have so many episodes where the story barely progressed at all. This is why so many people find this volume so boring to watch. And one of the few defenses I see is that people go, oh, you know, it's because it's the fallout of Beacon and everything is supposed to be slow. But I'm sorry, what exactly are you talking about? What fallout of Beacon? We don't actually see the aftermath of anything at all. All we get are like a few news reports and some of the characters talking about it, but that's pretty much it. We don't see like people panicking in Beacon or anything. Heck, we don't really see Vale anymore. Oh no, it's her. It's Blake. I hate Blake. I forgot she exists. So yeah, now we cut to Blake on this boat. In the last volume, she just ran away without telling the others where she's going for seemingly no reason. You know, Yang just got her arm cut off by Adam and she felt sorry for it. But now she decided to just run away despite the fact that Yang would have probably appreciated it if she stayed. Because reminder that she might probably be one of the closest friends to Yang because she revealed her traumatic past to her and the fact that she has abandonment issues. So for Blake to just run away seems kinda weird. She shouldn't have even been able to escape using her semblance, considering Adam broke her aura like 2 seconds ago. I mean, to be fair, that is kinda expected of her, seeing as in volume 2 she admitted that she always runs away, even though it was kinda contradictory in volume 2 to what her goal is, which is to stop the White Fang cause she believed to be the only one capable of doing so.
You don't
don't understand. I'm the only one who can do this.
So she must have a pretty good reason to just abandon all of her friends suddenly. And oh boy, there sure is. By the way, I'm also not a fan of her design in this volume. Her primary color is supposed to be black, yet they gave her a white coat that covers up most of the black parts of her design. Why do you keep doing these weird decisions? Also, I don't know what it is, but she looks less like a cat than she did in the previous volumes. It might be something with her eyes, like I don't know how to describe it. So anyways, Blake is on this boat going to some place, and while she's on it, she's acting very paranoid. And then the captain shows up to talk to her.
Maybe, but with your paranoia, I think a few friendly faces wouldn't hurt.
Who says I'm paranoid?
Okay, what's with this sudden attitude? It's not like the captain did anything, and she just gets angry at him because he guessed she's paranoid.
Won't be needing this.
Blake, when have you ever needed that? Like, is this scene supposed to be like some sense of completion to her character or something? But it doesn't make any sense. The reason she wore this bow was to hide from the White Fang and the authority, which makes no sense at all considering everyone can see her face. Was it to avoid getting picked on? None of her friends cared that she's a faunus, and the only one throughout the show that was a jerk was Carden. She never needed the bow ever. If she really did, then she should have done a better job hiding her identity. Also, I might be one of the few people that actually preferred her with her bow. And then they show that some cloaked dude is following her. After this, we cut to Yang sitting in her house watching TV.
With no end in sight. Try as they might, the local huntsmen and huntresses can't seem to get a hold of the situation at Beacon Academy.
What do you mean? What exactly is going on there that the huntsmen wouldn't have the situation under control? Need I remind you that this has been 6 to 8 months. They should have removed all the unversed by that point. That giant dragon that Ruby froze should have been removed already.
Though the failsafes have supported wireless communication within the kingdom, the loss of the CCT tower continues to prevent contact with the outside world. Talks with Atlas officials regarding repairs have...
What? I don't understand. So they have failsafes for wireless communication within the kingdom, but not with the other kingdoms? Again, it has been 6 to 8 months, and this is a world with far more advanced technology than what we have in real life. You'd think that they'd have fixed the communication tower by now. Also, I find it kinda scummy how they keep this shot mirrored, so we can't read what it says. Atlas officials working on solution, but not optimistic? I don't understand. Are you saying they can't fix the tower? Why? You're telling me Atlas, this kingdom with all this advanced technology and resources, can't just simply fix the communication tower again? I still find it so incredibly unbelievable that because the one tower fell, that suddenly there's no communication anymore with the outside world. Ah yes, failsafes to support wireless communication within the kingdom, but we're not making any effort on making contact with the other kingdoms. Why wouldn't they have backup communication towers then? How would they even know if the other kingdoms blame Atlas for this when they don't have any communication? Why is everything just wrong?
Rumors continue to circulate as to who was behind the attacks at the Vital Festival tournament. While no one knows for sure, officials have confirmed that high-ranking White Fang member Adam Taurus was present for the attack. Any and all attempts to bring him into custody have been met with brutal force.
Yes guys, Adam Taurus was there during the attack. So that means it was totally Atlas who is responsible for the attack at Beacon. I mean, I have to remind everyone that a lot of people were at the festival and running away from all the unversed. People that would be from other kingdoms, mind you. If Mercury was able to record everything, then random people could have done the exact same thing. So Ty comes in with a package and it's revealed that Ironwood got his top scientist to build a prosthetic arm just for Yang. Gee, that sounds very nice of Ironwood. I hope nothing bad happens to him in later volumes that would ruin his character. Yang doesn't feel like she wants to put it on just yet, and we see her doing busy work around the house. She drops a glass and gets PTSD over what happened, because we have to remind everyone that she is traumatized over what happened. Now I may come across as like mean with the tone of my voice, and you'd probably go, Pyro, how can you act like that? She's trying to get over her trauma. But this is the thing, her whole PTSD thing doesn't really affect the plot in any way whatsoever. Sure, her hand twitches and she looks sad, but it's not like it ever affects the relationship relationships with the other characters or anything. She gets the metal arm later on, and at the end of the volume she goes to Mistral to find Rwby. And that's it. I mean, I'm not trying to get ahead of myself here, but the later volumes don't have any effect of her trauma over what happened really. She acts like nothing really happened and the story just moves on. She doesn't make any bad decisions based off it, and it doesn't affect her during fights at all. This is just missed opportunity. Also, what's wrong with this shot? Yeah, everything. Why is the house so big and the characters so small? Why is there a window with curtains right above the stove? How is Yang supposed to reach up there? It looks pretty bad. So we cut back to Blake and the boat is getting attacked by a giant unversed. Now I'm assuming that the reason the giant unversed is attacking is because of Blake's paranoia. If that's the case, then why do these boat rides not have any huntsmen on the ships? Is this like a common thing that happens? I mean, was the captain trying to calm Blake down, considering her paranoia could put everyone in danger? Now, something by this size, we'd likely have to assume that it's impossible for Blake to handle, seeing as that one dragon is apparently still on Beacon Tower. Even Sun comes in later on for the fight. I'm sure Blake is happy to see that one of her best friends is here to help her out.
What are you doing?
What kind of question is that? Sun literally saves your life and this is your response?
My hero!
You're not supposed to be here.
Yeah? Well, it looks like you can use all the help you can get.
Ugh. Just shut up and fight.
What's with this attitude? I'm sorry, Blake, aren't you the one who just abandoned her friends after all the stuff that has been going on in Beacon? Remember when she was all blushy over him in Volume 3?
This is the part where you say it.
Ah yes, of course, she can move in midair because screw physics, I guess. So they defeat the dragon thing because of course they do.
Up top!
What? Why would she do that?
Never did like the bow.
Son!
Jeez.
Have you been following me?
Oh, so you slap him before asking if he's been following you? So you're mad at him for following you despite the fact that you just up and vanished without telling anyone anything?
I had to. You wouldn't understand.
No, I get it. The moment you left, I knew exactly what you were doing. You're going on a one-woman rampage against the White Fang!
What?
You've always felt like the Fang was your fight. They show up, trash your school, hurt your friends. It makes perfect sense.
I can't believe you.
But there's no way I'm letting you do this alone. It's an honorable approach for sure, but you're gonna need someone watching your back. And that's where I come in. Us Fauna's gotta stick together after all.
You're wrong, son. You're so wrong.
Oh no, Blake is upset that Sun is making sense in this situation, considering that her stance in the previous volumes was that she was the only one who could stop them.
You don't understand. I'm the only one who can do this.
And the fact you were up against the White Fang multiple times, it makes perfect sense for Sun to think that you'd be going up against them. But the show wants us to believe that Sun is a dummy and Blake is upset about the fact that Sun thinks the best of her. I can't tell if Blake is stupid or brain dead. So we cut to Salem and Cinder, and Salem asks Cinder if she killed Aspen, and she says yes, and then she asks,
"What are you planning?"
So she knows that Oz is still out there? If she knows, then why didn't she tell Cinder not to kill him then? What's the point of killing Ozpin when he's just gonna come back anyways? Why wouldn't they just capture Ozpin? Oscar could have been removed entirely. You know, and since Tyrian is going after Team Ranger, why did Salem not consider that maybe he might be falling for a trap going after Team Ranger? Salem would know that Ozpin would have had instructions to keep an eye on important people that would be relevant to his cause. And if she was able to find out that Rwby has silver eyes, he can too. Remember that despite Amber not having any target on her specifically, they had Crow available to watch out for her. Crow and Ozpin would have reasons to think Salem could send another group of 3 people to go after Rwby, like with Amber, and choose to have more people involved as a result. So now we get another scene of Oscar on the farm. All of this is completely pointless, cause all it establishes for like 3 seconds is that Ozpin is in Oscar's mind. And we get even more Yang PTSD moments that don't really do anything other than remind us that she's traumatized. These 2 teachers from Beacon came to visit Ty. I'm sorry, I thought the situation at Beacon isn't slowing down. What exactly are you guys doing? Aren't you guys huntsmen? Shouldn't you be helping with the situation? Isn't Glinda out there repairing the damage? Are you just gonna leave her?
You can do whatever you put your mind to. So whenever you're ready to stop moping, and get back out there, I'll be there for you.
I mean, that's pretty much all we get with her trauma. Yes, Yang, stop moping and go out there. We did it, boys. We healed trauma.
If you honestly think that you're ready to go out there on your own, well, I guess you lost some brain cells along with that arm.
So now we're with Team Ranger still walking to Misrule because we can't have the characters accomplish anything in this volume. And it also shows that Crow was following them the whole time. Guys, remember when Pyrrha said this?
Have you ever felt like you were being watched without knowing that someone was there?
Yeah.
Yet Team Ranger can't sense that they're being followed.
I'm not good at a lot of
pill
memory-related things. It's really, really bad.
Also, what the heck is Crow doing? Last volume he said he has to continue on from where Ozpin left off. What does that mean exactly? Also, why would they trust the one guy who not only is drunk all the time and has a bad luck semblance to continue Ozpin's work? Why is Crow even on this team at all if he brings bad luck? Why is Crow even going on this mission all alone? Why didn't he contact Glinda and gathered a bunch of huntsmen to go on this very important mission? For all he knows, Salem could have sent multiple people to get Rwby, and he couldn't handle this all by himself. So we cut to Crow sitting in a bar, and this is where we get introduced to Raven, who is like really hot and I want her to step on me. Who is Yang's mother and was the entire build-up from Volume 2. I find it disappointing that the way they introduce Raven is just in this bar talking to Crow, when Raven was like such a mystery in Volume 2, and the after credit implied there would be something greater done with her character. So now we're in Menagerie, and this whole arc here is just the worst. So Blake explains that the Faunas were put on this crappy island cause of racism, even though Faunas are free to leave this island and do whatever they want. But whatever, I guess.
A little desert never hurt anyone.
It's not like the desert in Vacuo, son. The wildlife here is more dangerous than most other regions.
Is she referring to Unversed or something? Cause I refuse to believe there's any other wildlife that is more dangerous than Unversed. How are they even able to live on this island when it's this dangerous according to Blake? So it's revealed that Blake lives in this big house and has loving parents. Hold up, she has parents and is rich? Doesn't that kinda go against what Volume 1 established? Because Blake's backstory made it seem like she was a poor orphan who was born into the White Fang. And later on, it was even established that Gira is not only the chieftain of Menagerie, but also was the previous White Fang leader. If that's the case, then how is it that no one ever recognized Blake's name? Blake was a criminal in plain view, and was even able to join a huntsman school without even changing her name? Does no one in the other kingdoms know anything about Menagerie and their leaders? That's just really stupid. Ozpin would know who Blake's parents are. Oh, I'm sorry, Menagerie doesn't have a communication tower, so they couldn't know. This is so stupid. At least Blake's mom is like really hot, and that's about all the positives I could give in this arc. This would also imply that Blake has been gone for like more than a year and never bothered telling her parents where she is. What exactly even took Blake that long to even travel to Menagerie? What exactly has Blake been doing these past 6 to 8 months? Was Sun really stalking her for this long? Also, I should mention that Collie's ear colors are different from her hair, and it looks weird. No need to fake me for ruining Collie for you.
Is everything okay?
Yes, dear, just poor timing. He can reschedule. It's just been hard dealing with them lately.
Dealing with who?
The White Fang.
What? Dad! What are you doing talking to these people?
This is Corsic and Fennec Albe. They represent the White Fang here in Menagerie.
Those psychos are here too?
No, really? The White Fang are on the one island that are filled with faunas? Who would have thought? I don't want to go anywhere near the White Fang, so I'll go to the one place the White Fang would likely be, and also my father was the previous leader of the White Fang. So these two guys are like, no son, we don't represent anything that Adam does. But then after this, they revealed they're evil anyways. What's the point of this whole fighting for equality angle when the White Fang are just one-dimensional bad guys? Somehow Gira doesn't even know what exactly happened other than Beacon got attacked. Are there no faunas that came from Menagerie to watch the tournament? Would none of them try to tell Gira that the White Fang were there slaughtering people? It has been 6 to 8 months. Also, that was the entire episode. They arrive in Menagerie and she visits her parents. So the next episode we're finally back with Team Ranger and they're still walking to Haven.
That's strange. I didn't think we'd be hitting another village for a few days.
They have to take days just to reach another village? What the heck is this journey? Again, do no other villages have any public transport? The place they were at last time had an inn and a bar, but you're telling me it didn't have any public transport? You cannot be serious. This is the second time they're in a destroyed/abandoned village. Like, why can't we have these characters do anything progressive instead of having them go to an abandoned village and always be sad over Unversed destroying stuff? These characters have done absolutely nothing for 6 whole episodes aside from Jean getting new armor, which could have been skipped entirely anyways. So Weiss is performing and then we get the scene of her at the party. She looks at the painting of what looks to be Beacon Academy, and then some Johnny comes in and flirts with her, and he fumbles it so bad that Weiss threatens to call security on him or something. What's the point of all these pointless scenes? It's not like we ever see this guy ever again or anything, so it was just a waste of time. So some lady is crapping on Beacon getting attacked and Weiss gets angry and starts roasting everyone in the room for being rich or whatever. So Shaw grabs her arm and tells her to stop, and she pulls away and accidentally summons a boar on Verse. So like, what exactly are the limits of her summoning? In volume 3 it seemed like she was able to spawn a big guy with a sword and Winter was able to summon like a different type of Unversed. But later on she summons this knight looking character which looks like the same one she fought in the White trailer. So is it like Final Fantasy where you have to defeat a boss so you can use them as a summon? I would kinda accept that if it's like specific bosses that she has to defeat, but she can pretty much summon whatever the heck she wants from the looks of it. Weiss is like the most overpowered member of Team Rwby. Not only can she do all kinds of stuff with her glyphs, but she can also move really fast, use time dilation, and also summon all kinds of stuff. I mean, I would assume Winter would be able to defeat bigger enemies than her. If anything, if she defeated like a dragon, she would just summon it and obliterate everything. So her summon attacks the lady and Ironwood shoots it and defends Weiss. Wow, that sounds pretty based of him. I hope nothing bad happens to him in later volumes. So we cut back to the Goofy Goobers and they sense that someone is following them. What? They can sense someone following them? How come they couldn't do the same with Crow? So Tyrian comes in and beats everyone up. Now I think this makes sense. These high school dropouts don't stand a chance against this more experienced fighter. I mean, you have to remember that the students can still do pretty impressive stuff, but there's still no match against this guy. And the things they do during the fight make sense. Even shooting Nora at the beginning to get an advantage against the guy. The things I do find annoying is that Rwby doesn't use her super speed to her advantage. I have to keep reminding the show that Rwby has super speed, because they keep nerfing her during battles when it's convenient for them. Also, we have seen that these kids are like capable to do a lot more, and they all move so slow during the battle, which is weird. Tyrian was able to break Ruby's aura, which I think is a bit too soon, because you have to keep in mind that the characters can tank heavy hits, high falls and explosions to their face, but overall it's not really too bad. But then Crow comes in to fight Tyrian, but not before we have another scene with Oscar that actually gives us some info finally. Well, not his character, I just mean on Ozpin being in his mind, because we wouldn't want to develop the character we created now, would we? He explains that both their aura and soul are connected, and that Oscar has the same memories that Ozpin has, and he wants Oscar to go to Haven. After this we cut to Jacques arguing with Weiss, and Weiss is like, I hate you, Dad, you took my family and I want to leave. Why did she take like 6 to 8 months to actually do it? I have no idea.
I said I want to leave. I don't want to stay here anymore. I don't want to stay in Atlas anymore.
Why would you want to leave Atlas? It's the one place where your company is running. Why would you want to leave the kingdom? If you want to join a huntsman school, then just go to Atlas Academy, for crying out loud. Ironwood offered you a place there. And then Jog slaps her because apparently she turned off her aura. If she had her aura turned on, the slap wouldn't have meant anything. Again, if aura is such a useful ability, then why wouldn't you just keep it on? So Weiss decides she wants to rebel against her father's wishes, which is exactly what she already did ever since volume 1. But because we need to give Weiss something to do, she's just gonna relearn the same thing again. How does that make any sense at all? So Jacques is like, you're no longer the heiress to the Schnee Dolls company. It's gonna be your dweeb brother instead. And Weiss decides to use her weapon to learn how to summon. Would Jacques even leave her with her own weapon in her room? Whatever. So we finally cut back to Team Ranger and Crow is about to fight Tyrian. And I gotta admit, this fight is actually pretty good. Heck, this might be the only fight in the show that is pretty good. The choreography between these two makes sense and the animation looks really good. And it actually makes sense that the characters look pretty powerful. How is it that the team just locked in during this fight, but then all the future fights are just garbage? The only beef I have is Tyrian acting like he got hurt despite the fact that he has aura, and that Crow's aura got depleted when he didn't get that many heavy blows, but overall the scene is really good. So Crow gets poisoned by Tyrian's tail and Ruby cuts off his tail and he runs away.
So these maidens, they're powerful fighters that don't need dust to use magic.
Yeah.
See, when they say don't need dust to use magic, that would imply that they know dust is magic, but in volume 3, the way Ozpin described it made it seem like it's a separate thing from dust.
What if I were to tell you that there were 4 maidens existing in this world that could wield such tremendous power without dust?
You mean like a semblance?
Like magic.
So like, what the heck do you want from me, show? Is dust magic or not? So Crow tells the kids about the maidens that were introduced in volume 3. I already said that I think introducing the maidens was a terrible mistake, considering we already have characters using special superpowers to fight against the great evil. But it gets even worse.
Well, then why not just travel with us?
He was using you as bait. Look, I wouldn't put it like that. It's complicated.
What? How is that using Ruby as bait? I mean, not only was he following Ruby for 6 to 8 months, but bait would imply luring someone into a trap, which is not what Crow did at all. He didn't even know who Tyrian was, and all he wanted to do was to protect Ruby. The thing he said to Tyrian would imply that he just wants him to leave. It's not like he wanted to capture Tyrian and interrogate him.
Look, pal, I'm not sure who you are. You need to leave my niece alone.
If Crow was using Ruby as bait, then he would have known what he was exactly baiting. This makes no sense. Jean wouldn't call this bait, and Crow would have told Jean that he's stupid for thinking that. But Crow does not attempt on defending himself properly, which is like the easiest thing he can do. So Crow tells the story of the gods, and yes, we're now bringing gods into this. There's the god of light and the god of darkness. The god of light created nature, and the god of darkness created the Unverse to destroy everything. But one day they both decided to create something they both can agree on, which are humans who are independent and have free will, and can make the choice to either be on the light or dark side. Now, here are the issues. First off, the Unverse don't really destroy everything according to the story. They exclusively go after humans and faunus throughout the show. And also, Unverse are able to evolve and adapt. That's why the elephants don't attack people, because they know they'll die. But why would the god of darkness give them the ability to learn and grow if all they're here for is to just destroy everything? I mean, Unverse don't have a soul, according to Pyrrha, and throughout the rest of the show, that's all they do. Just mindlessly attack people. The whole evolving thing isn't really brought up anymore throughout the show. Another thing is, if the humans are able to choose between light and dark side, then wouldn't the Unverse like sense if the humans are on their side? Cause like, what's the point of humans choosing the dark side if the Unverse are just gonna attack them anyways? Is that what was happening in volume 3? Did the Unverse just sense Cinder that she was a bad guy? But then why would it attack Tyrian? They just attack people on sight. So like, what's the point of the Unversed? Another question is, where exactly did the silver eyes come from? Well, since it eliminates Unversed, you would think it would come from the god of light. But due to the certain details in volume 6 I won't go into, it doesn't really make any sense due to the fact that it hurts the maidens as well. Another thing is the fact that it still doesn't explain where the faunus came from. It's like the show doesn't really care exploring the history of the faunus or anything. You know, it's not like they're fighting for equality or anything.
See, the 4 gifts to mankind aren't just metaphorical. Each of them exists in a physical form, left behind by the gods before they abandon Remnant. If someone were to collect all 4, they'd be able to change the world. The Huntsman Academies were created to train generations of humanity's protectors, but they also serve another purpose, guarding the relics. When Ozpin's predecessor founded the schools, he built them around the relics to act as a fortress. Not only would they be easier to defend, but they would be constantly surrounded by trained warriors.
What? Why would you make it so obvious as to where the relics are? Heck, the doors to the relics don't even open until it's opened by one specific maiden. The relics are already guarded enough. If anything, your top priority would be to keep the maiden separated and as far away from the relics as possible. Why would you keep the Fall Maiden in Vale if the door to the relic can only be opened by the Fall Maiden? If anything, she should be in Atlas, where she would actually be kept more secure and more protected and far away from the vault as possible. I know I'm using a detail from volume 5, but I'm sorry, I have to explain myself as to why this plan is so stupid. Of course Salem would want to attack the schools. You'd just be putting children in danger, just like what happened at the fall of Beacon. Why wouldn't the relics be at a random heavily guarded place on the ground or something that's heavily monitored? The fact you put the relics underneath every school makes it way easier to track them down. I don't care if the schools have huntsmen. Not only do the students and teacher not even know about the relics at all, but the chance that it'll get destroyed easily is very high, considering what happened in the previous volume. You cannot be serious. And another thing is, why would Ozpin ever tell anyone the location of the relics? Like, this is just so stupid. So now we're back with Blake and she's nervous to talk to her father. What exactly is she so nervous about? Damn, that must mean the thing she did must be really bad. So she goes in to have an awkward conversation with her father, and then Blake reveals what she did. So please, Blake, tell me what you did that is so important that you have to abandon your friends just to meet your parents again and settle things.
How can you still love me after what I did?
Your mother and I will always love you.
You were right. I shouted at you and yelled at you, but you were right. I called you cowards.
It's okay.
Oh, that's it? You yelled at them and called them cowards? That's it? This was worth retconning volume 1 and give Blake parents? They still love her despite that, so this whole thing is just unnecessary. It's just so lame. Like, are you kidding me? What's the point of this volume? You cannot be serious.
I gotta say volume 5 too. Like that's when Blake like goes back home and starts talking. Like you don't even know that she's got parents basically. You think she's an orphan, but she's not. She's got a mom and a dad, and she's got like daddy issues just like all of us do. Coming back after her parents left the White Fang when they turned bad, I think that was a big challenge for her to go back home and confront her parents and have that big talk that she had with her dad.
You came back. There aren't many who possess that kind of strength, and even fewer that have the courage to face their demons again. Vale, Mountain Glen, Beacon. You confronted the White Fang time after time.
You know, this makes me wonder something. Is Gira just not aware that the White Fang are wanted terrorists in Remnant? Not only is he the chieftain of Menagerie and he does get news on what happens outside Menagerie, but he was the previous leader of the White Fang. And not just that, but Adam was with him and he knows that Adam is a killer. This has been a thing for years. The way he acted previously made it seem like he didn't know how the White Fang operates.
What we've heard? We've seen firsthand. Your fanatics slaughtered people.
What is she talking about?
Even though he should, since not only was he working with Adam, but Blake was his partner. I know I'm using external media, but it's still worth mentioning on how the writers just don't understand their own continuity. So Gira asks Blake why she left Vale, and before she can answer, Sun breaks the door because apparently he was listening in on their conversation. I'm sorry, why would he do that when he could have just knocked on their door? Especially since later on he says he wants to talk to Blake about something important. You'd think he wouldn't just waste his time listening in on their conversation. So we cut back to Team Ranger and we get more exposition.
The headmaster over there saw what happened to Beacon. He's not dumb. He'll be on his guard.
Yeah, sure, the headmaster saw what happened, but apparently not everyone else.
So what should we do?
I don't really know.
What do you mean you don't know? You said you have to continue to where Ozpin left off. If that's the case, then you would have some kind of plan on what to do next. Maybe you should lay off the flask.
So, we're on our way to the headmaster.
Wait, what do you mean we? Why are you letting these kids tag along? You saw how they performed against Tyrian, and it's likely that Salem has high-ranking fighters on her side. The heck are they gonna do? This is the problem with this whole show. The main characters have like absolutely no reason to be involved in this story. It's just because the script says so. Instead of doing the thing Crow should actually do, which is to tell them to go home and gather up a few huntsmen that are really good and go on this mission with them. Instead, he brings along a bunch of high school dropouts, even though they have nothing to do with anything at all. You cannot be serious. So Blake slaps Son in the face for listening in on their conversation.
I'm sorry, okay? Ow! I'm sorry! Look, I promise it was important. I needed to find you to talk to you.
If you needed to find her to talk to her, then why didn't you just knock on the door and ask if Blake is in there?
What, son? What could be so important?
Again with this random attitude. Why is it that Blake acts like this to not just her friend, but random people who are just trying to be nice? Like, are they trying to make Blake an insufferable cunt or what?
The White Fang.
I'm stopping you right there.
But
I told you. I'm not here to fight the White Fang. I'm not here to fight anyone.
Yes, I'm not here to fight the White Fang or anyone. I definitely didn't expect the White Fang to be on this island filled with faunas. And also my dad was the previous leader of that said organization. Also, why would you act like this when previously you said you weren't done fighting?
Who says I'm done fighting?
If Son has important information about the White Fang, then you'd want to hear him out. Reminder that this was her stance on the White Fang in Volume 2.
You don't understand. I'm the only one who can do this. I'm here to rest, to figure things out, and to see my family.
Yes, I'm here to figure things out. Figure out what exactly? You had 6 to 8 months to figure it out, you idiot. You apologized to your father for calling him a coward, and he forgave you. I mean, everything should be resolved by now, I guess. So why don't you just hear Son out on what he has to say? You cannot be serious.
Son!
Look, I'm trying to help.
I don't want your help.
What the heck is wrong with you, Blake? Why would you do that? How am I supposed to find Blake an endearing character when all she's been so far is not only a dumb idiot, but an insufferable a-hole? How am I supposed to like this character when she's such an inconsistent mess? Oh no, there's a ninja watching you guys. Why did none of your auras warn you about her? Reminder, they can sense someone watching them without knowing they're there. Even so, how useful is a ninja gonna be when people can sense that they're being watched? If anything, ninjas in this universe are almost pretty useless, unless you're just betting on people having their aura turned off. But if you want to think logically about this, why would you ever want to turn off your aura? Actually, this doesn't work either, because Jean stated in Volume 1 that he could sense people even without his aura being turned on.
Have you ever felt like you were being watched without knowing that someone was there?
Yeah.
So spying on people is pretty much impossible. I'm fine with Son following Blake because Blake has been acting pretty paranoid and she still noticed that someone was watching her.
A spy.
But why would...
Gee, Blake, what happened to not wanting to go after the White Fang and just being here to relax? So Crow's poison is kicking in and the episode ends. So the next episode starts with Yang and Tai sparring, and I guess the whole PTSD subplot has been resolved, which is pretty disappointing. Cause like, being honest, I was actually pretty invested in seeing where this is going. But like I said, Yang just gets her arm and she's fine throughout the rest of the show.
There's also stuff that like, some like the DC Comics, for example, that's been really cool of like, you know, we learned very quickly that trying to split up a bunch of characters and tell like 4 simultaneous storylines in a 15-minute anime is kind of hard. And so because of that, you know, certain things have to get trimmed down or consolidated just for the sake of getting through that season. And, you know, there's some things like really wanting to spend more time with Yang, and we just weren't able to cut it in that particular volume, but now we get to see a little bit more of what Yang went through in some of the DC Comics and stuff like that. Just kind of helps to like flesh out some pockets that have kind of been left like empty, not necessarily in a way that's empty that's like it's missing, but like it helps to make it feel like a more coherent.
I mean, if you want to make a whole Yang season, I wouldn't be against it.
I saw your tournament fights.
Let me guess. I was sloppy.
You were predictable and stubborn and maybe a little boneheaded. Do you realize that you used your semblance to win every fight after the qualifiers?
So what? How is me using my semblance any different than someone else using theirs?
Because not everyone else's is basically a temper tantrum. Once you take damage, you can dish it back twice as hard, but that doesn't make you invincible.
So I don't get it. Is Tai saying she shouldn't be hot-tempered, even though Yang has always acted technical during her fights? I mean, the way he describes it is that she fought multiple people, yet the only fight we saw was her against Mercury. So I guess we just have to assume there were other fights before then, I guess? But wait, that's not possible, because Yang and Mercury were the ones up first. And even so, it was like at the tail end of the fight. She was trying to fight him without using her semblance. Look, I get what the scene is trying to say, but the thing is Yang should have already learned that. This entire lesson shouldn't be something Yang has to learn now, because reminder, before you even join a huntsman school, you have to go to a combat school, which is Signal Academy, which reminder, Tai is a teacher there.
He's still teaching at Signal.
So did Tai not teach Yang about this at the academy? Even if we are to assume he joined the academy later, this is still something that Yang should have learned. It's a combat school for a reason. So Weiss is practicing her summoning and Whitley comes in to roast her even more.
What could a single huntsman possibly do that an army could not? That's why we have one. Even if it is run by a fool.
What do you think Atlas Academy is? It's a huntsman school. So Weiss successfully summons this night-looking character and asks Klein for help to leave Atlas. So this whole entire arc was just so Weiss learns to stand up to her father and leave Atlas, something she already did before. Wow, Weiss sure grew as a character. So we cut to Blake chasing this ninja, and then it's revealed, oh no, it's one of Blake's old White Fang friends, Ilya.
You know her? But she doesn't even look like a fool.
Excuse me? Are we forgetting that Sun's aura didn't break? So how did he get stabbed by Ilya? Reminder, characters use blades and stuff to attack their enemies, and they don't get easily cut in half because they have aura. You probably want to make the argument, oh, it's because he drained his aura by using his semblance. But this can't be the case, because reminder, in Volume 3, the characters have been using their semblances, but they didn't drain their aura during the tournament. Unless they have retconned that, which again, they just can't stay consistent with their own rules. So we cut back to the goofballs and Crow is slowly dying from the poison.
How much farther? We've gotta be close.
Without the map, there's no way of knowing.
You left the map behind? The one Jean randomly dropped? Are you kidding me? Did you not bother going back for it? Heck, why did Jean even drop it like a dumb idiot in the first place? I get the priority was to look for survivors, but come on, it's the one thing they need to navigate through Anima. You cannot be serious. So they find a sign that says Mistral that brings them up the mountain, and the other side says Kiriyuri, which is another destroyed village. You know, isn't it just astounding how this whole volume Team Ranger has just been traversing through 3 destroyed / abandoned villages? What an amazing journey that is.
We can split up. Ren and I can cut through the mountains while you and Ruby take Crow around through the village. If we make it to Mistral, we'll bring back help. If we don't, we'll at least have a better view of the land. Up there, we can see if there's somewhere else we can go.
Why don't you ask the girl with super speed to go quickly up the mountain to get a better view of the land? So we once again cut to Oscar, and Ospen manages to convince him to leave his home to go to Mistral. The fact we get a scene where Oscar goes to a train station is still hilarious. He makes it to Mistral in like a day, while it takes Team Ranger like 6 to 8 months. Like, you cannot be serious. So Hazel comes in and smashes the machine and gives Oscar a ticket.
Don't let such a small obstacle block your path.
Why did you say that? Does he know that Oscar is on some amazing adventure or something? Yes, Oscar, don't let the small obstacle of illegally getting a ticket without proper payment block your path. Whatever that's supposed to mean. So we cut back to Jean and Rwby walking through Kuriyuri. Rwby mentions how Ren didn't want to go through the village, and Jean says that he has a pretty good idea as to why. And then we cut to a backstory involving Ren and Nora when they were kids and lived in the village. This entire backstory is once again a waste of time. I need to remind you that Ren and Nora in the past volumes have done absolutely nothing other than just be the comic relief. And now you decided to give us a backstory that that just tells us how they met and how Ren unlocked the semblance? What exactly does this do to their characters that we didn't already know about them? I mean, sure, we got to learn how they met, but was it really worth giving us an entire flashback that pretty much just tells us that Ren lived in this village and it got destroyed by the obvious enemies that are the cause of every single conflict in the show? Pretty much it's just you waiting for the disaster to happen. Look, Ren lived happily in this village with his parents, but then the Unversed came and destroyed everything. Oh no. Okay, and what does that do to their characters exactly? This also annoys me because Ren's father is a huntsman, yet he dies by Unversed, the thing they're supposed to be specialized against. This is like the second time you introduce a huntsman that just dies. It's been 4 volumes and so far we still have no clue about how skilled huntsmen are in comparison to those kids back in volume 1 to 3. And they all just die because we have to make our main characters look good. You cannot be serious. So Ren's father tells Ren to be strong and he sees Nora under this house and he's like, "It's okay, Nora, I'll protect you." And then Ren uses his semblance. What is the semblance, you might ask? His semblance is able to mask people's negative emotions, but I will get to that into more detail later. Wait, what? So how is it that the Unversed didn't sense your fear? Ren turned off his semblance before the horse guy even walked past them. So we cut back to the present where Ren and Nora are up the mountain and then they look inside a cave where some Unversed used to be. And apparently that Unversed is so powerful that no other huntsman was able to defeat it. And that exact Unversed is the same one that attacks them later on. So this Unversed has been around for years and it still wasn't defeated by any huntsman in Anima? You cannot be serious.
I thought you were the girl that wanted power. Then stop holding back. If you wish to master your new powers.
Master her new powers? Isn't she the woman that defeated Ozpin? I'm sure she already mastered her powers by that point. But whatever, I guess. Why should we care about consistency? What the? Tyrian is here? How long did it take for him to get from the Land of Darkness to Anima and then all the way back to the Land of Darkness? Well, if we pull up the map again and look where everything is, Anima is there, but it doesn't say where the Land of Darkness is. But I'm assuming it's the dragon-looking one, because what else would it be? But if we look at how long it took for Team Ranger to go from Vale to Anima, it took them 6 to 8 months to even get to where they are now. If I assume in good faith, then it must have taken Tyrian like a few weeks to go to Anima and find them. But then I asked the question how we knew where exactly to look for them and who to ask, but whatever, it's not that important. And with what Nora said that it took them weeks from Shion all the way to Kurayuri, I would probably assume that it took Tyrian also a few weeks, and it took a few extra weeks to get back to Salem. So how is it that it takes Tyrian a few weeks to go where they are, yet it takes 6 to 8 months, probably a few extra weeks, for Team Ranger to travel from Vale all the way to where they are now? The timeline makes no sense whatsoever.
You disappoint me.
Wait, what? If his tail is still strong enough that it can knock over an Unversed, why didn't he go after them and beat them all up? It's not like Crow can do anything since he's poisoned. So Yang is getting her bike ready and decides to go after Rwby. I guess that's it for her story. Weiss is sneaking out the room and overhears his father in the middle of a conversation with Ironwood. He says that Winter reported that there's a threat in Mistral, and Ironwood tells Jacques that the borders in Atlas will be closed, and that no one is able to leave without the council's permission, and Weiss decides to head to Mistral. So now we cut to Sun waking up on the couch and we get this amazing interaction.
This is why, son. This is why I left them all behind.
What are you... Wait, where am I?
I am done seeing my friends hurt because of me.
Blake.
Shut up!
What the heck is wrong with you? Sun wakes up, he doesn't know where he is. You don't even ask him if he's okay, and you make this about yourself? I hope you eat a sock.
Blake.
Shut up! Do you think I like being alone? Every day I think about them. They were my friends. I love them like I never thought I could love anybody. And I hope they hate me for leaving. Everyone thinks they can help me, but they can't. They're better off without me. I made my choices and I'll deal with the consequences because they belong to me.
Blake, have your IQ levels dropped or something? You seriously think you're the reason the White Fang attacked Beacon? They would have come even if you weren't there. Your friends weren't in danger because of you. You just so happened to run into Adam and Yang just so happened to be there, and Adam attacked her because she called your name and he saw how you were worried about her. Even if we forget about all of this, they're huntsmen in training. They've all decided to choose to become huntresses that would put them in harm's way because it's their job. Being a huntress isn't all fun and games. And if you seriously think that the reason they got hurt was because of you, then you're an idiot. And you seriously think running away from your friends would keep them safe? What if Adam comes back and they all get wrecked since they all put a target on their heads? Now, one of the defenses I have seen as to why it makes sense that Blake abandons them is because, oh, she had to make sure to keep Adam as far away as possible from them. Okay, this is completely wrong, and here's why. First of all, Unversed were overrunning the school and Adam was nowhere to be seen. Second off, Blake took the time to make sure that everyone is okay before leaving.
Once we landed in Vale, you made sure everyone was okay. And then you just took off without saying anything.
If she took the time to do that, then why did Adam not attack her then? Third off, we saw her leave and she has been gone for 6 to 8 months. Am I seriously supposed to believe that Adam would chase her for this long? And she only now got to Menagerie. So Gira comes in and reveals that Adam is trying to overthrow the leader of the White Fang. And Blake is like,
we're going to take it back.
Okay, so she still wants to stop the White Fang. So we had an entire volume where not only was Blake a complete idiot, but she had no real issues to resolve because her parents forgave her instantly, and she still wants to stop the White Fang like she wanted to in the previous volume. So what exactly was accomplished here? After this, we cut back to Team Ranger and oh no, it's the horse thing from years ago that no huntsman was able to defeat. You cannot be serious. So this is the final episode where this horse-looking Unversed shows up and they all fight it. Okay, now this is where I have to talk about Ren's semblance. So again, his semblance masks people's negative emotions. But here is the thing, the Unversed acts like as if he can't see the person anymore. Like, is this supposed to imply that Unversed don't see you when you don't feel negative emotions? This can't be the case because there were multiple instances in the show where the characters seemed very excited sometimes and not even bothered by an Unversed presence. Especially when it's established that Unversed can evolve, and the reason some don't just attack humans is because they know they're gonna die. So I just simply assumed as long as they see you, they're gonna attack you. It sounds pretty reasonable. But here they make it seem like they can't see you anymore once your negative emotions are masked, but Jean is still standing right in front of him. So either they forgot how Unversed operate or they contradicted it on purpose just so we can have this moment of Ren masking Jean's presence. Do the Unversed not have eyes? What about their nose? Can they not smell their presence? If we look at it realistically and how previous volumes established it, then Ren's semblance would be completely useless. Because if I take the rules they've established previously, the Unversed would just attack Ren regardless if he masks his emotions. The only time it would make sense to use it is if he's hidden. So either they retconned the Unversed's behavior, or they just forgot how they behaved previously, or they just don't care and thought to do this because it looks cool or whatever. Now, I think this entire fight is complete bull. So you're telling me experienced and well-trained huntsmen couldn't beat this thing, yet those high school dropouts can? You cannot be serious. I'm sorry, but Team Ranger should have died here. It's especially annoying because it's the exact same horse guy from when Ren was still a kid. This guy has been alive for years. Why do they insist on making huntsmen look as weak as possible just to make their main characters look good when it doesn't make sense in the context of the show? Jean, why don't you ask Rwby to use her super speed and quickly slash all of its legs? Why is it that Rwby doesn't use her scythe to slice her enemies more often than just shooting them in this volume? Especially when Rwby has super speed, for crying out loud. Wow, Rwby finally used her scythe to stab the thing. Amazing. Everyone holds it down and then Ren deals the final blow. So again, experienced huntsmen couldn't beat this thing, yet they can. You cannot be serious. So out of nowhere, Miraculously, 2 airships arrive at this exact spot because they were on patrol and saw the smoke, and they all fly to Mistral. Wow, everyone, we did it. We did all this unnecessary walking just so an airship shows up coincidentally and brings them all to Mistral. Aren't you happy that this whole volume was a complete waste of time that could have had so many things done much quicker and cut out all of these unnecessary scenes? Cause I sure am. So Ruby writes a letter to Yang about all this unnecessary stuff they all did, and the show tries to be all emotion and stuff. But I'm just bored to death and disappointed. Yang was able to quickly get to Anima on her bike.
You are in so much trouble when I find you.
No, she's not. You're gonna say she is, but she's not. We get some after credits where Oscar finally made it to Crow and asks for his cane back. And the volume ends. Wow, that sure was a waste of time. Like, no wonder so many people think this volume is slow and boring, because nothing really happens. Like I said, all of volume 4 is pretty much just vague setups for volume 5. But it's bizarre to me how like so many things that are in volume 5 could have also been done in this volume. We didn't need Team Ranger to do all this walking when you could have just make it that they're already in Mistral. We didn't need Weiss sitting in her room. She could have been in Atlas Academy. We didn't need to retcon Blake's whole backstory and make her do all this stupid stuff. She should have been dead and burning in hell. The only character that could have been interesting to explore with what they set up at the end of volume 3 was Yang, but they don't do anything with it and she's just on her way to Mistral. This whole gods and maidens thing should not have been introduced in this show at all, because it makes everything even more inconsistent, as if the show isn't inconsistent enough already. Like I said previously, the ending of volume 3 crippled the whole show. None of the characters are explored and they think it's a good idea to do all this stuff here instead of doing it way earlier or do it at a more appropriate time. Yeah, I'm sorry, but this whole show is a catastrophe moving forward, but fear not, because the worst is yet to come.